Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci, and you're watching CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and also all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, on CFL Talk, joining me is David Morassutti of Sportsnet.
How are you doing?
Doing fine. Yes, I'm doing fine. I'm still getting over coming back from Halifax, and of course, dealing with the fact that that we're doesn't look like anybody's got a good grip on us having a team there. It doesn't look good there, but it is what it is. I'm hoping things will work out. I'm getting a little sun. I've been going to the beach the last couple of days, David. I got to tell you, it really is nice down there on a sunny day, sitting on the boardwalk, a floor up in a restaurant, having a cold one, watching the waves crash against the sand.
I'm not impressed. First you rub it in about
Especially because you know
Halifax.
where this is, because you know where I am.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wasaga Beach, baby.
Oh, good old Wasaga. Good old Wasaga.
Yep. Not as rowdy as it used to be back in the day. It's a lot calmer now than it maybe has been in the past. Lots of motorcycles, lots of cars, but I don't think there's as many as there used to be. And they got rid of the road along the beach. So, it's a bit quieter once you get out of the parking lot.
I think that was the intended purpose.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and it's summer, folks. These are we're getting to the dog days of the summer, and we're also getting closer to the middle of the CFL season. And as we know, um, the season really doesn't begin until Labor Day. So we're at the end of July. So we're getting there, right? It's going to be really interesting. And I'm looking forward to a schedule that I'm still scratching my head about. Four of the next 5 games for the Argos are against the Ticats. And then they play Ottawa back to back. So it's going to be Ottawa and Hamilton for a while.
Gonna get that. It'll be good for travel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic for travel. They'll know the way. Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting. And the rest of the league, basically the same kind of stuff. Well, listen, let's start on a sad note. A real builder of the Canadian Football League passed away, former CFL Commissioner Doug Mitchell. I had a chance to meet him maybe, I think, once. I never really met him that many times. But this guy was all over the CFL, working for teams directly, working for the Canadian Football League, and I think it's fair to say that he stepped in when we needed him most.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a bit before my time, but yeah, he from everything I was hearing, you see all the messages and what everybody was talking about with what Doug Mitchell was able to do for the CFL, which in that time, yeah, you're pretty much right. He did help the league during a very tough period, but he brought upon. I mean, if it wasn't for him, Calgary Stampeders, who knows where they would have been or what would have happened with that. He was a big part of what they are, and he obviously also named the Mitchell Bowl is named after him as well. So that shows his his work also in the college ranks of
Yes,
Canadian football.
yes, he was a football guy. He only ruled from '84 to '88 as the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, but it seemed like a lifetime back then.
Yeah, you really think about it. You think about the last few years with the last few commissioners that this league has had. I mean, Randy Ambrosi, the amount of scrutiny he gets
Oh my
with
goodness.
what he's the job he's done, and trying to have that steady commissioner, right? Like if you look at, I was trying to look at the timeline here of guys throughout the years, but I just you just think about what this league has always needed, and it's that long term sustainability, both in the commissioner role, but also, you know, within the league itself. And you know, I think when you look at guys like a Doug Mitchell and what he provided, and and you don't want to let somebody's work like that just go down the wayside, right? You want to continue that. You want to build upon that. I think that's what's been a driving force for a lot of people who have that passion for CFL football, and he's the one that brought it every well during his tenure.
Yeah, he was all about football as much as he was about the Canadian Football League, and um, really appreciate what he did, and a tip of the hat to Doug Mitchell, a great leader, great contributor to the game, and thank goodness we had him. And a lot of people are going to miss him, and a lot of great memories are still remaining from his tenure and from him being in the Canadian Football League and football in general. So our condolences to his family and his friends and the teams that held him dear and close to their heart. Let's talk about some good news. Three players that were named the players of the week. We have Trevor Harris, Andrew Harris, and Gittins. We've been talking about Gittins. I know we cover the Argos, and it sounds like we've got this bias towards the Argos. It's just because we know more about the Argos than we do about other teams. So relax, chill. It's okay. We do watch all the teams, we do watch all the games, and we do pay attention to everything. But this Gittins kid, since he's been here, almost instantly, David, he's been amazing.
It's pretty surreal. What, yeah, like you don't see it usually happen that quickly. It's it's hard to describe. Like I don't know when's the last time we've seen this in the CFL in this sort of case. I don't know if you.
We've seen it a couple of times, but the important thing is that this kid has been getting better, and I call him a kid because not just because his name is Junior, but because he is a young man, and good for him. Here's what I'll say: he amazes me with the catches that he makes, and he's a big part of the Argos win column.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I've been a proponent of saying that Curly hasn't been used enough in the Argos offense, especially at the start. I even asked McLeod Bethel Thompson about this, and he says, "Yeah, we need to get Curly going more." And in this game, well, they definitely got him going more because
Sure did.
152 yards, did not drop a single target. He was targeted 8 times, did not drop a single target. And then he has that long one that goes for the 70-yard touchdown. But like that shows the type of talent that he is, and part of the reason why I think the Argos, he should be kind of the identity of this Argos offense. He can just make plays. He's dependable. Not many young guys his age, as you said, are dependable to an offense. And I think, if you want to look at, we've talked about McLeod Bethel Thompson over the last 2 weeks, he has looked pretty good, and it's because he's using. I think he's trusting these younger guys. Yes, you want to make sure Speedy Banks is going to get his touches. You want to make sure Andrew Harris is getting his touches too. But these young guys are going to be the ones that are going to give you the bigger bang for your buck in terms of big plays.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to another guy that's doing really well, and a team really needs him to do well since Adams of the Montreal Alouettes didn't pan out at the beginning of this year, injuries and other things, including the COVID. Trevor Harris was the player of the week. Was a player of the week. He had a season high 341 yards passing. That's a ho hum for Trevor Harris. 25 of 31, an 80.6% passing percentage. And the most important thing, which isn't a yawner, he won the game. And they got some touchdowns in the red, green, orange zone, whatever color you folks are calling it today.
Yeah, and when we talked to him after the game, I kind of said, Andrew, it looks, you broke the record, you had a pretty good game, but I could tell on your face just by looking up watching the game, you really wanted that touchdown. Part of and we find out it's for one of two reasons. One, he really likes to score touchdowns because running backs don't, especially when you get the ball on a third down play, you want to score. But he also had a bit of a side bet with Curly Gibbs Jr., who would score the first touchdown this season. Fortunately, Andrew Harris lost that bet, but I think Andrew Harris will make up fine of losing a bet to a young guy like that.
Well, as a receiver, he was 7 for 7 as far as he had 7 targets, caught the ball 7 times. He broke a couple of runs, important breaks that he did create, and with a little help, of course, from his offensive line. And it was his second 100 plus rushing week. And nowadays 100 plus yards is not a it's not the old days. This is you're lucky to get that. I mean, in 4 games, you're lucky if one of the running backs ran for 100 yards in the Canadian Football League, in today's Canadian Football League. That's not to say more in a week, but on average, that's about it. The running game is not as uh, potent in the Canadian Football League as it has been in the past. And if you can get that running game going, there were 31 pass attempts by the quarterback, right, Macbeth, and there were 33 touches for Harris. That, David, we talk about all the time as far as what do you want from an offense? You want it to be balanced. And I guess that would be the definition of a balanced attack.
Oh, for sure. This is why the Argos brought in Andrew Harris in the first place, right? Like they want to make sure that it's not going to be all pass because late in the game when you have a lead, you want to be able to go to your running game. But I think what was also important is that when they were trailing, they didn't get away from the running game because the last thing you want is for the defense to think, okay, they're going to go all pass here. Keep the defense on its toes. And Saskatchewan, they're like, we were so happy that Winnipeg didn't bring back Andrew Harris because that means we wouldn't see him anymore. And these this game especially, they figured out why they didn't want to see Andrew Harris anymore.
And Andrew Harris did something that not many players have done. In fact, only 5. He is the 6th player in league history to reach 10,000 yards. He's a Canadian, and when we talked to him in the press conference, I didn't want to refer to the fact that he was Canadian. And the greatness that he is displaying is not heard of by Canadian players. He really is the prototypical new Canadian football player, where he plays a position that most Canadians don't dominate in the league. He dominates in the league. He's among the best. And we see that speckled everywhere in the Canadian Football League, and even in the NFL. There's a couple of players that are doing awesome in that league as well that are Canadian. And this guy has been as durable can be. And I mention that because we all know that Winnipeg was wondering, is this the year? Is this the year Andrew Harris doesn't do what he's done in the past? So far, he's a little older. The team that he's playing for is different, one that he doesn't know. And he really is starting to round into form. And the one thing that no one can deny about Andrew Harris, it's desire on the back of hard work. This guy is a phenomenon as far as his health and his desire and his physical punishing of the opposition that's supposed to be punishing him. I mean, when he's going downhill, I don't think anybody wants to be standing in his way, but they got to.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing too here is you're seeing the offensive line understand how to play with Andrew Harris, right? Because that relationship between the running back and the offensive line is so crucial because they need to know, okay, where do we need to make sure that we have the blocks set up for Harris and him to have trust in the offensive line to get him the blocks he needs. I think you're starting to see it really push forward. And you asked him about the offensive line after the game as well.
Yeah. He's a great player, and you know what's great about having a pro like him, an all-star like him, a future Hall of Famer like him, is that the offensive line now is learning their craft with a guy that understands his job, well, quintessentially perfectly. right? So it makes it easier for them to learn their job. So this is an opportunity for, this is why when you play with great players, it helps you to become greater. And whether you become the greatest or not, time will tell. But we know that the guy that's carrying the ball is one of the greatest of all time in Canada, and that's what the record showed. Let's move over to the other Harris. The other Harris in Montreal has done a marvelous job of coming in, being patient, and being a team player and not being difficult because he wasn't the starter. And then once he was given the opportunity, he showed the patience, David, that, Trevor Harris is a pro. He's a veteran, no different than Harrison as far as experience, ability, talent, and desire. And he went to Montreal, went back to Montreal this year. He could have left and gone elsewhere. He decided to go back to Montreal, knowing the circumstances that Adams was probably the starter. And he has waited his chance, and it came, bided his time. And soon as he stepped on the field, David, I saw the Trevor Harris that a lot of people in Montreal were hoping they would get.
Yeah, no, it's and here's the thing, right? It's one thing to implement a game plan for one quarterback in in Vernon Adams. It's a totally different game plan for Trevor Harris because they're not. There's different quarterbacks. It's a different type of offense here, and the thing we've always known about Trevor Harris, accuracy. He's not afraid to, go deep. He has shown that he is willing to take those big shots, but he will have these sort of games where you're just hoping that you can do enough to contain him because it's not much you can do to stop him.
He has a great arm, and he does.
Yeah.
He trained in the school of, along with Caleros, in the school of Ricky Ray. So, again, that same story I was talking about with Harris. When you get a chance to play with the best, a lot of it can rub off on you if you're willing to work hard and grind. And we know that Harris is willing to grind. We know that Caleros is willing to grind. And we all know how good a quarterback Ricky Ray was. So congratulations to those three players: Curly Gittins, of course, Andrew Harris, and Trevor Harris for being the players of the week. Let's go on to some games now, and I guess we can start with Montreal again against Ottawa. We talked about the great play that Trevor Harris displayed. What else did you notice in this game?
Uh, Jushron Antwi on
Yeah,
uh,
go ahead. You can say his name. I'm not going to.
taking over for William Stanback is no easy feat. 7 carries for 79 yards.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. It's pretty good in my books. But I think the other important note here is you look at the guys who led the way receiving. You have Hergy Mayella
Yeah.
and Reggie White Jr. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from him this season. It feels like another younger player leaving his mark on a team right now. He's 26. He's got let me look here. 324 yards in 6 games this year. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but he's slowly been getting himself acclimated more into this offense. There's some weeks where he's not targeted as much or he's not getting the big plays. Now we're starting to see it a little bit more. I think Montreal is starting to develop a bit of they're trying to develop more than just, a Jake Winicky.
Yeah. Well, we're waiting for him to bust
Yeah.
out, right? 40 yards, not what we expect from him. We expect a little
No.
more.
Well, no, especially when
28 yards for, I mean, 4 or 7 and 28 yards. I mean, Eugene Lewis is a key component. Ottawa did a masterful job of basically ensuring that guy didn't kill him, because he's the guy that can kill you.
yeah, and let's not forget that Eugene Lewis is a straw that stirs the drink of that
So
passing game, right? And so, that's where I think Montreal has been trying to find those other guys that can complement him, right?
absolutely
And this is where Trevor Harris comes into play.
beautiful.
because he can get those guys going.
Yeah, his distribution was fantastic, and if you can't defend because you don't know where the quarterback's going to throw next, that is what you want. And when you look at who did the receiving for Montreal, I mean, full well their defense played a major factor in this game, and it does all the time. This is a great defense that basically Noel, he came back to Montreal. He left Montreal. He came back. I'm referring to the defensive coach. Yeah, this defense is something to consider. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see some other teams in the East start to play a bit better. But Montreal, I think they're on the cusp, David. I see good things for them in the future. They're starting to round into form.
They're, in my opinion, they're the biggest challenge to Toronto right now for the division.
That goes without saying. But I'll tell you, unless you're talking about the schedule, so their biggest challenge to Toronto is the Ticats, 4 games in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as this game's concerned, we all know that Ottawa lost their quarterback. We all know the quarterback they lost was the player they were counting on to help them to get to the point where they could be referred to as a legitimate Eastern Division contender. He's out 10 to 12 weeks. We may see him at the end of the season. Caleb Evans is a good quarterback, but I think we both agree that he still needs some seasoning. He needs to be around a CFL quarterback to help him continue, his reps in practice and become the kind of quarterback he can be. He doesn't have it just yet. There's flashes, but then there's also the flashes of the mistakes.
Yeah, right. This is somebody that last year was kind of thrust into it because they were looking for something different, someone to actually provide them with something at the quarterback position. And then this year they get Jeremiah Mazzoli, which was a good thing for him because Caleb Evans could learn from a Jeremiah Mazzoli, just like a Dane Evans learned from a Jeremiah Mazzoli. The problem is, and I saw we knew about this about Jeremiah during his time in Hamilton, is that he can't remain healthy, or he's had struggles to remain healthy. Obviously, this is not a situation where you can blame it on Mazzoli at all, but I think that there's a lot to like about Caleb Evans. It's unfortunate that he's kind of had to been thrown into situations rather than being able to kind of work his way towards it. But I I think he's someone that Ottawa can work with. We saw it in this.
He's making receivers look good. Jalen Ackland looked fantastic, 113 yards, and then you got Darvin Adams with another 118.
But
they need more guys, but
Darvin Adams has that good game. But if you ask Darvin Adams, it's all about that one play.
oh God, are we really going? Are we going to go there? Are we going to go there? He's not listening. We can go there. It's okay.
What I will say,
all the tough catches he makes, all the great plays he made in that game, and then he had a couple of hiccups. But unfortunately, the last hiccup was a killer.
This is what I will say about that play. In real time, it looked like a complete miss. He absolutely botched the catch. But then you look at the replay, it's not like it was directly floated at him. He had to try to time the jump with the hand, try to get it. It was not an easy catch per se. It wasn't like a gimme touchdown. But a guy like Darvin Adams, that is still a catch he probably should make, and he would agree that he needs to make it. And
can we agree it wasn't outside a catcher's radius?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's where I'm going with that, and I think that's what is going to kill him about that play.
It was on the outer edge of his radius. Yes, he had to jump, but his hands, he had plenty of room. He didn't. It wasn't completely outstretched, which maybe might have been the problem, I guess. But it was, it was in his hands. He had room to maneuver his hands around the ball how he wished. But I think the ball came on him too fast, and his reaction time was not fast enough, to get it all together. And it's too bad because he's He's a great receiver. Ottawa needs a break. They didn't get it, but Ottawa, as much as I love the idea that they deserve a break, I think Montreal has proven also that they deserve a couple of breaks. They haven't been spoiled this season. They've had an interesting life early on in the season. So both these teams, I think, David, this game, I believe it's a confidence builder for both teams because I think Ottawa goes into the film room saying, "Look, we're almost there. We're on the edge." And you hear the opponents that are playing them saying that. Trevor Harris said this is a team that they could have won this game. They're getting real close, and Trevor Harris respected their ability, and he was a good guy talking about the team that he played before in a positive sense. So, and I think he was sincere. He wasn't just because he won and being a nice guy and a half hand half
We've seen it from Otto all year long, right? We've seen it because
on the edge.
they are because they've got really good pieces. You look at that offense. The defense is what sells it usually for me with Ottawa. Um, we always said that it's trying to get that quarterback.
If they had Mazzoli, I'm telling you, if they
I,
had
I
Mazzoli, they'd be up there with the Argos.
yeah, it's and that's what's a killer for a team like Ottawa there because they know that if they have their quarterback, it's a totally different situation.
Yeah, but you know what? You can't live on what should have been. Ifs, ands, or buts. At the end of the day, you got to deal with in reality. So their quarterback needs to learn quickly, and we know that he's able to pass to talented receivers, so that's a good thing. So he's able to basically run an offense. And against a team that has a lot to prove and very energized, the Montreal Alouettes, they put in a good. He did a good job against a pretty tough defense that Montreal provides.
Yeah, I mean Montreal still and look, they have a new defensive coordinator, right? So like I wonder how much that played into it too. Montreal's defense hasn't exactly been stellar, hence part of the reason why they made the changes that they made. So I think Montreal, if they get all the if they get that defense playing to where they want to be, they can. Again, I look at this as Montreal Toronto right now for that division. Obviously, Hamilton will now get that opportunity when they play the Argos as many times as they do in Ottawa too. They're not out of it by any stretch, but
No, not at all.
as it stands,
Nobody's out of it.
nobody's out of it. But there's two teams that are trying right and that look more so like they're pulling away just a tad.
And there is a bit of a problem if you're in the East. The worst team, not the worst team, but the fourth place team in the West is Saskatchewan. They won the division last year in the West, and that's a pretty good division. And they've been a little snake bit. So the crossover looks pretty at this point looks pretty definite. So half the teams in the East aren't making the playoffs. So two do, two don't. And right now it's Montreal and Toronto. If you're Ottawa and Hamilton, you're not worried. You're not worried about getting to third. Third's not going to be good enough. You got to get to second. And as long as Montreal and Toronto start working towards plus 500 record, and you're down at 1-5 and 0-6, it's not looking good for you. So they really got to turn things around really fast. Speaking of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, there was a cat fight at Tim Hortons Field between the BC Lions and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Lions win it 17-12. They did it in a different way than they've been doing during the season, but it might be because I don't know. Hamilton's defense is pretty good. Unfortunately, their offense not so much.
Yeah, it remains a weird thing that you know what Stephen Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
He's I mean after that unreal catch he had the week prior, follows up. He gets a touchdown this week. Um, like he's the real deal there in Hamilton. They still don't have a running game, like a consistent running game. They have a bunch of guys that are running the ball there,
Yeah.
but they don't have that. Like they had over 100 yards rushing, but when you look at it, it's because you have let's see here two, three, four guys kind of splitting the carries a bit. Dane Evans, we know he likes to run. Don Jackson is their top back, and he didn't exactly have a stellar game himself. Braylon Addison had a few runs himself, but I thought it was quite interesting.
Throw in there too.
I found it quite interesting. You see Matt Schultz.
Yes.
He took that one shot to the end zone there. Hamilton, yeah, you said it. Their defense pretty good. When you can get another week where
Without
Nathan Rourke
Simone Lawrence, David, without Simone Lawrence,
yeah.
they've done a great job.
And Nathan,
Part of that defense.
yeah, and Nathan Rourke, another weekend where he has
Oh,
a few turnovers. He's not now. He's still putting up pretty decent production, over 70% passing. He's got the 2 touchdowns, but it's the interceptions right now that are kind of, if he doesn't throw these interceptions, again, BC is almost handily winning these games. But yeah, this was a tough game, but it's also one where. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Don't you just hate it when a young quarterback starts so good and
Yeah.
now he starts looking like a young quarterback? But still, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1-1, right? Even. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I'm sitting here saying to myself, I've been talking about how great this kid is, how much I hope he doesn't play really, really well because we don't want to lose him because he's so good. And what happens? I jinxed the kid. I shouldn't have said anything like that. But you're right, David. And BC, that their system, they caught teams by surprise early in the season. I think that's a fair statement. Um, and that doesn't continue if you don't come up with different schemes because teams watch film and that film helps enlighten you. And as much as when a team has success, the opponent that meets you next week has that much more respect for you. And that's another thing with football. If you respect the opponent, you play better.
For sure. I think that this is a case where it just feels like there was something a little missing from the game. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Scoring,
But pardon? Yeah,
scoring.
yeah. Scoring would be one. Like if you were watching that game live, you were kind of hoping for a little more scoring.
If you're a Ticats fan, you sure we're hoping for some scoring.
Yeah, like I was just checking here. They had 2 field goals. They're like Hamilton. I think right now is just kind of they're there, but this is not the Hamilton we've come to know from the past, where you are you're fearful. I'm not fearful of the Hamilton Tiger Cats right now to
Well,
play.
in this game, accredited to both quarterbacks as they threw as many interceptions as they threw touchdowns. So when that happens, the offense is going to suffer a little bit. My feelings about interception to touchdown ratio, and it's got to be a little better than that. And the kid, let's keep this in mind too. As much as the Tiger Cats lost, their effort was there. They tried really hard and they just didn't catch the kind of break that a team needs to win once in a while. And right now Hamilton's doing enough wrong that they're not winning, and I'm sure it's frustrating the heck out of their fans.
Yeah, well, that's a big one there. I like Hamilton's barely winning games, and they're barely losing games as well.
Yep,
That's got to be so frustrating for not only the fans but the players as well, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
After missing out on the Grey Cup, they make all those changes in the offseason. They went through quite a bit of turnover in terms of,
They knew.
right?
They knew. We knew they were going to have to. They were going to start slow.
Like I'm gonna go through
Slow, I don't think. But
I'm gonna go through their first 6 games right now. Lost by 7, lost by 3, lost by 14, lost by 4, win by 2, lose by 5. It's a coin flip in some of these games in terms of how close
It's that old
they
adage,
really
you gotta
are,
win the close ones to be a great team.
and
This
that's.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But I think that it's either they're going to learn from this, and eventually they'll turn things around, or it's going to sink them. And
Uh,
right now it's sinking them. But I think, and we talk about this because they're 1-5, but you win a couple of games in the East here against some Easter opponents, and you're back. Almost, you
yeah,
can at
yeah,
least talk yourself to being back into it.
the Argos are running away with the East Division only because of the lack of victories for
Of
the
the guys, teams
behind.
below them.
They're 3-2, which is a much better record than any of the teams, and they haven't played as many games either. So they've got games in hand and they're ahead in wins. So you know they're in a position right now where they're the old saying. It's weird to say this early in the season after playing 5 games, even though they're 2 weeks behind everybody else because of the buys. They're already they 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 just have to determine their own destiny. They don't have to rely on anybody to do anything. If they play reasonably well through the season right now, 500 football, I think they've got first place. Just because of how far in the hole the other teams are. Now Montreal is the one thing but they're 2-4, so there's still a few games behind. So as far as the Argos are concerned and the Eastern Division is concerned, they're in the catbird seat for sure. Montreal needs to do some work, and the rest of them got to really turn things around.
No, they do. They really do. And again, we like their next game is against Toronto. So there is that opportunity. I mean, sorry, next game is against Montreal, and then you get the run of Toronto, Montreal in terms of for them. So that's you talked about how the season kind of starts on Labor Day. I think the season starts this week for Hamilton because they had a
Oh,
heavy
oh,
dose of loss.
absolutely, because they have to put themselves in the position at Labor Day to be a factor, to be in the race. The season begins on Labor Day. It begins, but it also can end for teams because that's the home stretch, baby. That's when you got to really be in a good position and you got to be ready to play. So the Ticats played well and didn't play well, and they lost. Wow, 17-12 to the BC Lions, who are, they're playing well enough to finish in a playoff position in their division. You and I, we earlier in the season we said, they crossover, but no Western team wants to be the crossover team. It's very difficult in the playoffs to be the road team in the winter, right? And on the road, and football players, big group of guys that need to be transported. And so this is why if you're the Western Division, you don't want to be the crossover team. They have not had any luck in the past few years. They did a long time ago, but not recently.
Yeah, no, and it's the East Division is going to. I mean, the West is intriguing too, but I mean, the problem with the West is it's one team, and then it's like who are they going to be the ones fighting to get number two? In the East, it's always been who wants it, who wants it, and
Uh,
that's going to be the interesting thing to watch now.
the motivation isn't as strong in the Eastern Division. That's a reality. It's the truth, and it's the challenge that you are if you that, for you if you're an Eastern Division team. The Western Division teams know that they got to really bring it from game one. That's why Saskatchewan, is concerned with their play lately. But let's not skip the game between Winnipeg and Edmonton. Winnipeg wins 24-10. Edmonton, David, they need work. Their kicking game isn't as good as it could be. Their defense is a bit porous, but can you really judge their porousness when playing the back-to-back Grey Cup champions? Their offense, it needs some work. They acquired John Ryan from the Tiger Cats, who was with Saskatchewan last year to help their kicking game. And they brought in wide receiver Levi Noel, that we know really well from the Argos. They're looking for experience at kicking. They're looking for experience at Canadian receiver.
And
I think
special
Chris Jones
teams.
is starting to pull some levers.
Yeah, I look at this game as that late touchdown that Winnipeg scored in the first half really did Edmonton in, because Edmonton would have been down if I'm 10-6 going into half.
Yeah,
You'll take that. Instead, it turns into they're down 17-6.
yeah. No.
Totally different game. And I thought, you know what, Taylor Cornelius, despite getting sacked 5 times,
Oh boy.
he was looking decent. He looked like he could command the offense a bit there, but it's again the interception, it's the 5 sacks, it's offensively they commanded the time of possession 37 minutes to 22, or
Yeah,
almost 23 for Winnipeg. When you have the ball that much and you only score 10 points, look to your offensive coordinator and say, what are we doing wrong here? I mean, it's pretty easy what they're doing wrong. They're not getting enough production. Like Kenny Lawler has been every bit of the money that he is being paid based on the fact that he's really the only one you can trust in that offense.
Ollie
Yeah.
possible. Emmanuel Arsenault made some key receptions. I was impressed with the old guy. Really, I think he was channeling his old self.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that he the problem here is that you can't rely on Emmanuel Arsenal to be your top guy. That's not what he was brought in for. He was supposed to help elevate the other guys. Like Kenny Lawler, you expect him to be your top guy because you paid him to be your top guy.
You do.
But a guy like Caleb Hawley, he's got to be kind of your. He's got to be better. He was targeted 11 times, only made 6 receptions. That has to be better for a guy that's being targeted that much in an offense. You need more out of him.
Yeah, they weren't getting it.
And then you got Winnipeg on the other side, where
Wow.
I don't think there's a quarterback. And look, Zach Collaros was not very good. It was a very un-Zach Collaros like game, except for the fact that every CFL team seems to make the same mistake with Zach Collaros. And or maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it's just Zach Collaros is so darn good at it. He gets out of the pocket. There's no better quarterback in the CFL throwing the ball out of the pocket than Zach Collaros.
With the accuracy and the quickness that he does, finding a receiver while scrambling, he does it better than anybody.
It's seamless. It's seamless for him.
Even,
So
even the way he throws the ball. I mean, the one there where he ran out of the pocket and it was almost like a shot put. I don't know how else to explain it. It was. Well, he's obviously become a really good quarterback, and he has developed throwing styles, which you're not accustomed to seeing. At least I'm not. I mean, in the Canadian Football League, at least. He throws a lot of different ways.
yeah, he's not. Yeah, he doesn't rely on just one way to kind of get the ball out of his hands. He is truly a versatile quarterback.
He sure is.
I'm just surprised that he was at 43% passing in this game. It
Two
just goes to show
interceptions.
again. Yeah, 2 interceptions too. It goes to show again how good of a team Winnipeg is, that when their quarterback doesn't have his best game, it does not matter.
And
At
then he tosses one for 81 yards just to cause some pain.
And 146 of those 188 yards were to one guy.
Absolutely. On a couple of plays.
Yeah, an 81 yard, 81. So 81 of the 188 yards passing came on one play.
A lot of people were saying, Winnipeg's, resting a few guys. They're treating this like, a week that they need to rest their guys. And they didn't give Edmonton the kind of respect I think that Edmonton deserved. And I think that's what would disappoint. Well, Jones was very disappointed with his team. He made it very clear, and in no uncertain terms. And to the point where some people felt that maybe he was a little hard on his team. Um, but we are talking about Chris Jones. This guy does not like to lose, and losing is becoming a habit, one that he wants to break his team of, and that's why he made these moves with John Ryan and Levi Noel. So yeah, so Edmonton loses 24-10. You gotta like Winnipeg. They're just trucking along, making it look easy. Won another one. Haven't lost yet. We'll see. We'll see how long. I don't think they're going to go 18-0. I think they'll go about 17-2. I'm just dying to see who the two teams are that they're going, or one team that's going to cause them to lose twice.
You're
That's
gonna-
what it's looking like.
you might get your best chance this week with Calgary in Calgary.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, Calgary, and word is from Calgary, Bo Levi Mitchell's not happy, and if he's not happy, and this team, I've talked about the Calgary Stampeders from day one. Once the season opened, you could see it from training camp. You definitely could see it from the first exhibition game. This team is angry as a unit. They want their throne back, and they don't like the idea that someone else is sitting on it, and the fact that there is another team that they've got to get roll over. And now it's turning out there's yet another team they have to roll over. So this is going to be a tough division, and this game here, I think this is the game, obviously the best game of this season that we're looking forward to.
I think so. No, I definitely do. Um, because it's again two of the top teams in the CFL. It was 2 weeks ago. A lot of people said that game kind of not overshot it. It took away some of the sparkle from the touchdown in Atlanta because everybody was so happy to watch that game.
Yeah,
But I think I'm expecting a very good battle between two very good teams and one team that's hopefully going to be motivated to end the undefeated streak that Winnipeg is on.
see how physical it is.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have a hate on like the Argos and the Riders had. Let's talk about the Argos and the Riders. The Argos win 31-21. And here's the irony of this game. If you look at the statistics and you didn't watch any of the game, you would look at all the stats and say, yeah, Argos were full value for a 31-21 victory. But those statistics that they had that they were so great, especially at halftime, when you saw the score and saw the stats at halftime, you're going, so tell me, how is it that Toronto's losing? And everything fell into place. This is a team, I joked on the internet talking about the Toronto Argos historically have been a team that from year to year doesn't about face. They play really well and then really bad and then really well and then really bad. They're turning that annual kind of change, that feverish kind of play, and doing it by quarter now. I mean, they're horrible in a quarter and then they're great in a quarter. Their inconsistency, I think, has been the only constant for this team this year. And against Saskatchewan, they're lucky that this was a team that was COVID factored, that they had injuries and they had suspensions. And the Argos, at the end of it all, could have turned this into a trap game. And once again, David, but this time special teams and the defense turned things around for them.
No, it did. It really did. And that like when your offense turns the ball over 5 times,
Ouch.
that puts you in. And I'll credit all the Argo players after the game. They said we put our defense in a really tough position. But I think what it goes to show is ever since that BC game, this Argos defense has picked up their game. It kind of when you get kind of embarrassed like that, and a lot of people were talking about, oh, look how good Nathan Rourke is, all this and that. The Argos took that personally. That defense got a lot of veterans with a lot of pride,
Absolutely.
and they're playing like it right now.
Best example of that pride and that hard work, Jagarrett Davis, is his solo effort to keep them out of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Saskatchewan. He just insisted that running back was not going to get into the end zone. That was the most, I think that was the best example of perseverance, hard work, and just having a will to stop the offensive player. One on one, David. One on one.
Yeah. No, when you are one on one, usually the defender's in a tough position.
Very tough. Absolutely.
And I give him a lot of credit because he was in a tough position there. And when you see a running back coming at the defender like that, you're kind of you're kind of just hoping that the defender kind of picks his spot of making the right point of where he wants to tackle, because the offensive players got to be the one to make the move first. So
There were 3, 4 pushes by the running back that could have caused
mhm.
him going over the goal line, but Jared Davis was there for everything. And that's been, you know, the Argos defense. If we can talk about positives, and I'm sorry if it sounded like I was being negative about the Argos and their inconsistency. One thing I got to say though, the defense, like you said, I don't want to make the mistake of leaving people think that I think the whole team has been inconsistent. It's been as a team they've been inconsistent, but their defense has been big play, win game. That's what they've been. They've made the big plays to win the game, and I like the fact that I also, when I talked to the coach, I like the fact that when he gave Brissett that tongue lashing, which was a little excessive, I think we both agree. Brissett set it aside, and then on the next special teams, he was the first guy to get a hold of the runner, the kick returner, and that led to that kick returner ending up in an awkward position because he was trying to avoid him, spinning him around, and then the ball came loose. That was something. And then a rookie becomes a hero, which was good for him.
Yeah, he needed that. I was a little concerned. You get concerned when a guy who's had a tough time this season, and then you want to make sure that he's not getting the confidence totally taken from him.
Well, you got to meet the challenges. Hey, look, if the coach is going to give it to you up and down, it's going to happen. Now, I think we both also agree that a coach needs to also pick his spots. He can't be constantly getting upset with the team. So far this year, the situations where the Argo players have apparently imploded, the coach has lost has been very frustrated. Players on the sidelines have been very frustrated. But it seems every time the Argos are introduced to this kind of negative response or negative behavior, they've risen above it to win. And to me, that's interesting. It's not something, it's not one of the ways that we design or believe winning teams are designed. It's a contradiction in my mind, and I don't know whether it's a good sign or it's a bad sign that eventually they're not going to work their way out of these problems. But we're going to find out.
Yeah, I know. Like if they think that it cost them that game against Winnipeg a few weeks ago. If they think that they're going to be able to get by with making all these mistakes, this is, I think this comes down to the head coach, who I think still has quite a bit to prove, considering he has little experience, and he would agree with that too. And he's said that he's acknowledged the mistakes that he's made. Now comes the learning, taking those learning moments and making your team better because of it. And this is where Ryan did what he needs to step up in this case.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, David. Thanks for doing this.
Always great.
I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, Aaron live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we did it on Tuesday. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.